Hello Reddit readers, today we have amazing stories from rich Redditors on our timeline. I won't keep you any longer. Like and subscribe to the channel. Enjoy watching. Story 1, from user Stilgar54y. Not rich. But my husband and I make well over $500,000 a year. That sounds like a lot, until you learn that we live in Mountain View, California. He works at Stanford and I work for social media company. Here we do well. We have no kids, and we save a lot of our income. I grew up super poor on and off until I was a late teen. Like my father hunted for our protein, and my grandma mended my brother's hand-me-downs for me. My husband grew up reasonably upper middle class. Maybe bottom level of wealthy. The biggest things I've learned. One, that the desire to be rich one day is itself a religion. A kind of religion. It's a dogma that we say prayers to. There are rituals around it. There's this almost spiritual believe in an be rich, one day afterlife of imagining ones. Post-scarcity paradise in reality. Once you get rid of all the things that drive you by occupying much of your time and energy, you are left with your own demons. I'm a gay guy from one of the poorest parts of Ohio and from a right-wing Pentecostal family. Under normal circumstances, my needy kids a job, a wife, and the stuff of life would keep my mind occupied, freed of that. I've had time to unpack an incredibly painful childhood, which has not really been the paradise I hoped for until I arrived at this place. This myth about one day I'll be rich and happy when I have X amount of savings was a lie. It was myth. It was like a religion that kept me working and kept driving me forward. One day I reached the promised land and discovered that its mostly sophistry happiness is the pursuit of happiness. It is in belonging to others and in having a purpose to those we love. 2. Miserable people are mostly miserable. No matter what, happy people tend to be happy. No matter what, there are exceptions below a certain amount of income. The circumstances of life drain and destroy you if you earn enough to buy back all that suffering. Waiting in lines, crappy healthcare clipping coupons, worrying about rent. What you're left with is a space where you can thrive. People born to be miserable cunts will be miserable, no matter what. People who would be happy but can't because of poverty may probably thrive. And those who are happy will just be happy, no matter what happens. 3. Rich people. I mean, really rich people really are different, since I'm surrounded by SV wealth and have a few friends with 8 and 9 digit worth. They just are different. I have a friend in the 8-digit range. She is utterly obsessed with her earthiness. I'm just like everybody else. We were strolling down the street in San Francisco. After lunch, she went on and on and on about how she's not disconnected from reality. Then in one moment, she took a call from her husband. Okay. Well, just call Bob and have him charter us a jet. We can get to Las Vegas in like an hour. I was like, that Indian football coach, meme staring at her. Excuse me. Marcia, that statement was not a just like everybody else statement. Next to nobody else. Ever says the words, well, charter a jet when getting to Vegas. In under 4 hours becomes so inconvenient that they don't want to drive 4. No matter how rich you are out of touch with someone struggling at a less entitled position. As you am not rich, but the luxuries to which I've become accustomed are hard for me to live. Without my husband works at a hospital, and we have great tech worker insurance. So when we go to the hospital, we just go in, and any doctor will see us. We fly mostly business class, and anything other than that is quite literally painful. Maybe you can't afford those things. But if, say, you live in the US and have a house, food, clothing, and not much else, there's someone far worse off than you. Somewhere on Earth, they're suffering. You're not. And the hardest thing about our reality is that there is only so much of our time and energy. Any one of us can spend thinking about it. The greatest joy you get from having money is the freedom from worry that it buys and the ability to do really great kind things for your loved ones. It's nice being able to afford doing stuff for our friends and family. It's nice being able to not have to do so many of life's super annoying things. It's nice getting time away to go on vacation, buying stuff. Not worth it for me. It's all about the time I get with my husband. Story 2 from user OKVacation2308. How rich people present varies across the entire spectrum. My husband and I make $250K a year. We've got about a $20K gap in our individual incomes, currently renting an apartment in the city. And our big expenses are just being able to afford going out to eat regularly and one international vacation a year. We don't own a car, and our budget certainly isn't private jet. Wealthy, our rent is $4K a year for a 3-bedroom on a train line, which is worth it for us as we work from home and like being able to walk wherever we need to. Most of our money goes into savings and investments, as my parents are still poor and we're prepping to support them. And his mother. In their old age, my husband's dad and his second wife are both surgeons. His dad's worth millions on his own, and his wife is an heiress with about 1,000 properties, commercial and residential apartments. If you ever met his wife, you'd never guess how much she's worth. Based on her attitude, her presentation, and her behavior, she prefers to live normally on the day-to-day. So she doesn't invest in the big designer brands in her clothing, need grocery shops at Walmart, and while she owns multiple homes for personal use, all but her main place, a 4,000 house, townhouse in a suburb in Indiana. The rest are pretty modest, and generally in the 15 to 2,000 apartments in major cities she has to visit often for work or family. Their real main expenditure is just vacationing. They tend to be somewhere international, at least 4x a year. His dad's first wife made off with millions in the divorce and had a lot of successful investments afterwards. And she's much more the Heigl-Levanning type, while she lives at home with her dad. To take care of him, everything she owns is custom or designer brand name. She's a huge penny pincher when it comes to tipping and is always trying to scheme or scam for a discount. And she treats people like absolute ass. And according to my husband, always has, she was big in the wealthy, stay-at-home, wives community. And his sisters describe it as very real housewives. She's also a massive bully. She gave both of her daughters eating disorders, which gave them both long-term health issues and resulting weight gain from the medications they have to be on. To manage them, and tells them outright to their face they're ugly, and asks them, when are they going to value themselves again? She would regularly tell them not to be friends with anyone she deemed ugly, which was literally anyone not dressed expensively and fully done up, because she was worried their habits would rub off on her kids. She got the oldest laser surgery for her height-related stretch marks at 13 to remove them. And she paid for the middle one's breast implants because she stated she was too flat to get a husband. Story 3 from user Bogey Kingston. I went from 0 taxable income in 2012 to over 1 mentors in 2022. So maybe I can answer this. What's most surprising is how everyone treats me so differently. My family thought I was a lost cause because I made bad grades and didn't like church. Now they say they're all so proud of me. And knew I'd always make it. Hey, some friends ask for money pretty regularly. I give them side work or contract jobs, but they suck at working. Have no interest in doing well. You'd like to think those around you are just your friends. And I have those, but typically, they're doing good themselves. This thread is mentioning how much time rich people save. But for me, I only pay people to clean my house so that I can work more. My time spent in the office pays for the cleaners. So it's not like I'm laid up chilling with people cleaning my house, I'm just working more. And I work a lot. Another thing is that I spend more money on dumb shit when I was broke. Lol, I still have this stupid zombie axe that was like 70. And I justified by like being prepared. Stupid could have gotten a better axe from a hardware store for half the price. Now I'm hyper aware of every dollar. Even though I shouldn't really be, I invest in the market. I have all types of side hustles in addition to my company. And I'm constantly reading and listening to podcasts about the market, geopolitical events, and learning what things drive sectors. I'm deeply interested in creating generational wealth because all of my deep-rooted childhood fears were created from poverty. Lastly, I'll say having you money shows you who you really are. I honestly thought I was more materialistic, and I know I'm not a nice person, but I'm absolutely a good Dude, I'm solid. I have integrity. Strong beliefs that aren't about money. I just love to work, earn a lot. It's fun to me. IDK if that's an answer you wanted, but it's in my experience. Story 4. From user Wally Plumstead. I grew up in poverty and I never became rich. But I still learned lots of things about rich people by living next door to a rich family. When I was 12, Mother managed to snag a great deal on an apartment in a 2-family apartment house in a neighborhood that was definitely middle to upper class, one of the very nicest neighborhoods in the city. We were way out of our element in that neighborhood. As a matter of fact, we were the freaks of the neighborhood. We were the poorest people in the neighborhood. We were the only family on welfare. In the neighborhood, out of the dozens upon dozens of kids in the neighborhood, my siblings and I were the only kids who were being raised by a single parent. All the other kids were being raised in 2-parent families. Whereas, we were the poorest in the neighborhood. Our very next door neighbor must have been the richest guy in the neighborhood. He owned his own successful demolition company. He owned the 2-family apartment house he and his family lived in. They lived out of their first-floor apartment and their basement, while renting out their second-floor apartment. They owned a house in Florida. They owned a fleet of cars, which would get replaced with a new fleet of cars. Every 1 or 2 years, when his oldest son got married, he bought his son a 2-family apartment house across and down the street. My sister and brother made friends with a couple of their kids. They'd come home with tales of their wealth and all the nice stuff they owned. I've never been inside their home, but I could see into their dining room from our windows, and the furnishings were so opulent, fancy, and expensive. I'd bet their dining room furnishings alone cost more than everything we owned in the whole world. My brother once told me how their mother went food shopping once a week, every week, and how she spent a minimum of $100 each time, even as much as over $200 in our home. Our mother went food shopping only once every 23 weeks, and then she'd spend only around $10–12 on food. The highest she would ever spend on grocery shopping was $20. It was a big deal to us, kids. If and when our mother spent a whole $20 on grocery shopping one time, the next door, rich guys. Youngest kid was hanging out with my brother at our place when the kid decided to go to the toy store to buy himself some new toys. My brother tagged along. A couple hours later, they both came back with a huge armload of toys. Mostly Transformer toys, as that was the hottest toy around that time, and deposited them on our table. My brother's friend, I think he was around 8 years old. I was 9 years older in my teens, then took out his cash change from his purchases out of one pocket and his wallet out of the other pocket so that he could transfer his change into his wallet. I was standing right behind him as he opened his wallet. My eyes bugged out of my head. Inside were 50s and 20s and some 10s, lots of them. Lots of 50s, lots of 20s. A very thick wad of them. I don't recall seeing any 5s or 1s, not until he stuck his change into his wallet. Now he had some 5s and 1s in there. I don't know the exact amount he had in his wallet, but he definitely had more than enough cash on him that could have paid for our rent and groceries for about 6 months, at least. Imagine an 8-year-old kid walking around with that much money in his pocket, more than most adults. All the cash I had on me at that very moment in my pocket was a lousy 3 cents, 3 pennies. Which literally represented all the money I had in the world. I didn't even own a wallet. What for? I never had enough money on me that necessitated the need for a wallet. Later on, my brother and his friend left, taking the toys with them. I went straight into my bedroom. I dug out of my pocket the 3 pennies I had on me and slammed them down on top of my bedroom dresser and stared at them. They were all tarnished. They didn't even have the decency to at least be shiny pennies. Man being poor? Sucks. It sucks even more when you've got real-life rich people living next door to contrast your life with. Story 5 from user Melancholy. Mulaney. Okay, so I got a job as a software engineer. I didn't win the lottery or marry into old money or anything. But the first few years of working in a well-paid career, I felt like I was going insane. It's hard to relate to your new coworkers when your hobbies are watching TV shows, with friends, and writing songs on a guitar. Your mentor gave you, and their hobbies are international travel, credit card hacking, and investing. My former boss once mentioned offhand that she pays all the travel costs for her family, and then her husband pays her his half once a year, and they had traveled a lot that year. And he was sort of shocked to find out that his half for that year was $15,000, which he did have available to pay her at that time. I'd been in tech for 6 months and was very proud that I'd scraped together a $2K emergency fund for the first time in my life. Also, you get so much stuff for free as soon as you don't need it. My job paid for my monthly bus pass, my health insurance, even my morning coffee, that first job. They had a coffee shop in the lobby with 2 full-time baristas that was totally free. Honestly, some of the best espresso of my life. And even when I had no money, I was a coffee nerd. 2 of my coworkers bought coffee at the coffee shop down the street every day anyway, because they liked that coffee shop a little better. It was infuriating to be given all these perks that would have been life-changing. The second, I was also paid enough to afford them without it being a struggle. Something worth noting, if you work in a well-paid field like that, watch out for the people transitioning out of poverty. They were massively underpaying me. And I technically knew that, but it was still so much more than I had ever made in my life that I couldn't bring myself to believe the actual numbers for entry-level tech jobs. If it weren't for the unofficial Women in Tech group who did a salary-sharing spreadsheet and helped a ton of people advocate for raises and eventually got salary bands implemented, I would never have been brave enough to ask for what I was worth. And since raises are percentages that can impact your pay for the rest of your career, I try to pay it forward now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and write comments. See you later.